is working in my way. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Peace. Peace, everyone. This looks nice. This looks nice. I'm just checking this out. Welcome to another edition of Spiritual Economics, where we delve into the topic of wealth creation, utilizing mental processes, wealth creation through mental process. You know, I was thinking a little bit tonight how I was going to do this, and I think I need to approach this scientifically, not religiously. Um, I'm going to try to use just a totally scientific approach because that's what it really is. That's what it really is. Let me, I got to pull up something real quick. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Oh, let me get this out the way. Yeah, I'm not using that. Get rid of that. What's going on? What's going on? You know, it's a funny thing when you come to tell people the truth. When you come to tell people the truth, and they start slandering you and throwing accusatory statements at you just because you are standing on truth. And I really see that. I see how I just really see that. You know, let me try to explain why. Because I have people who email me when I criticize people who play the victim role, and they think that in some kind of way that makes me some kind of evil person, or I don't know, in some kind of way maybe I'm not for the movement, or I don't know what it what they how they try to interpret it, but all I know is that it involves just the truth. Uh-oh, somebody said fix. Check, check. How is that? How does that sound right there? Is that better? Let me see if that's better. Much better? All right. Well, somebody must have wanted me to use this mic today. I wasn't going to use this mic. Okay, that's cool. I hope nothing happened to that. That mic, I don't know. I hope nothing happened to that, man. Okay, let's get back to it. I like that mic. That's a nice mic. It looks good on screen. I like that mic. Okay, back to what I was saying about the accusatory tone of people who try to play. They say that I criticize them for playing the victim role. Well, the reason that I do that, and that why I'm so hard on victims, is because victims are are people that are asleep. They're asleep, or they're under some sort of very strong influence. It's either or, because If you're coming to someone and you're telling them that you have an inherent power, that you have an inherent power, that you have control over all things, that you can make your life be whatever you want it to be. And this can be proven scientifically, which means that it's going to be involving cause and effect. This can be proven, and you bring this to them, yet they reject that message. So since they reject that message, then when they say that the government is abusive, and then I said, well, you keep putting yourself in an abusive situation by how you choose to think, and you reject that also. So it's hard to have a conversation with a person like that. You know, it's hard to have a conversation with an individual like that on topics like this, what we're discussing, because if you are going to improve yourself or obtain any type of level of success, there is already a pathway that has already been tread. You know, it's not you're going to make something new. It is a situation in which cause and effect is what is being utilized. Do what I do and you'll get what I get. All you have to do is follow the exact procedure. This is the reason that mentors are necessary. Do what I do and you'll get what I get. So this is cause and effect. For every cause there's an effect. For every effect there's a cause. It orders everything, cause and effect. So through that understanding of that, okay, if somebody's claiming to be a victim, okay, there's can only be one answer. If the truth is that the mind can manifest whatever it is that you desire, and everybody has a mind, and then the only way that you would be upset or calling yourself a victim is if you didn't know that you had a power, or you rejected it when somebody came to tell you or show it to you. You rejected it and you embraced instead a victim mindset. That's why victims deserve to be criticized, because if somebody's coming to you and telling you that, hey, look, you have the power. You have the power just like anyone else. All you have to do is make a decision, and that decision is to choose to think in another kind of way, in a constructive way, in a positive way, and things will begin to change for you. If you want things to change, you have to be the change that you are seeking. Change is the only thing in the universe that doesn't change. Everything is subject to change. So you're not, which is a beautiful thing, because that's one of the major principles of the universe, which means that it doesn't matter what your situation is. At any time you decide, you can change it. The next thing we would have to discuss is whether or not what is the control mechanism that allows you to change it? Can that be articulated intelligently, scientifically, in a way that you can comprehend it? And that's why I'm always talking about the Kybalion, because I don't see how you can get around understanding vibrations, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. When I hear all those laws, it's like a symphony. It's like all of them are always playing together like a symphony. And, you know, you can hear different notes or different notes. You know, here's cause and effect, here's rhythm, here's mental, but they all interact with each other. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing. You really can think about the Creator and his unsubstantiated capacity. Who, you know, it's a beautiful thing how it was all put together. And if you understand it, you can utilize it to your own benefit. All you have to do first and foremost is you have to understand the laws and obey them. You cannot violate them, okay? That's what makes it a immutable law, okay, or immutable principle, meaning it's not subject to change. It's one of the things that are not subject to change. This is the foundation of God, because God doesn't change. So things that we see, these qualities, these are different qualities of God, you know, that we are seeing, different parts of him, change, just the polarity, cause and effect, gender, all these different things that we see in nature. These are natural laws. And that is how these natural laws operate when you are sitting here listening or reading something like the Kybalion, and it's saying mentalism, correspondence, vibration, rhythm, polarity, cause and effect, and gender. All of those things can be observed. It can be observed. You can gain empirical evidence, and verify each one of those principles, by things that happen in your life or just things that happen generally in nature. And and so that's one of the reasons why I guess I would come off to a lot of people as if I am overly criticizing individuals and because I'm trying to make them be accountable to themselves. The reason for the accountability is because that's the pathway to enlightenment. That's the pathway to godhood, is accountability, because the first thing that you have to gain control of is yourself, because it is the only thing that you can control. Luckily, if you can learn how to do that, the creator of the boundless universe made a way where if you can do that, you can control your life. You can control your circumstances. You can have whatever that you want, long as you follow the rules. And that's all manifesting, and all that is. It's just really a following rules, creating vibratory forces that you can align with, that will just present themselves in your life, just by the fact that you're aligning with it. Everything is about frequency, gaining that frequency. And it requires repetition, for you to really shift into it. Repetition over and over. That's why people, they get all these rituals and everything that they do, because it's going to require some repetition to impress upon the subconscious mind. But you have to impress the right thing upon the subconscious mind, because you can impress the wrong thing on the subconscious mind. And but it's really possible. It really takes you into who you are. It's just hard. It's just hard to. I'm trying to understand how people. I'm trying to find a way to express my understanding of why people will be upset because I criticize these people. But I'm trying to express to you the reason why I criticize these people. I criticize them because they have a power that they are refusing to utilize, and then when you try to tell them about it, they don't even want to hear what you have to say. And you can see this demonstrated in all of the religions too, in many different ways that people are talking about the same thing. That's what's the beautiful thing about it. It is also the thing that unifies all religions together. How can that not be of God? Because all of these different religions demonstrate these different characteristics in some shape, form, or fashion. If they are a true religion that's going to last, because only a religion that is in alignment with natural laws is going to have any type of continuity. Anything that didn't, it will soon fizzle out. It's not going to be around. So there are different religions that, are good. I think religions are good training grounds when if you are really the type of person that is going to observe the principles that are contained in it, and not just be giving lip service to it or try to use it for some sort of doctrine or. It really helps to know the principles. It really helps to know the principles. Even though you ignore me, I'm going to help you exactly the same way you help me. Violate me to volunteer. What's yours saying? What dude saying? He said back sound. Victory is in the heart of the diligent. Yeah. I am the extreme truth lover. Sometimes it just helps just not to even read the chat. Because you can see energy is You can sense energy in a variety of different ways. And you can really begin to understand why people say that you have to keep it out of your space, because it is disturbing. Anything that will disrupt your peace is disrupting your focus. It's disrupting the stream of attraction of whatever that is that you're drawing to you. It's disrupting that stream. So that's why you have to remove it from your, you just have to remove it. Just all negative things, get it out of your space. Anything that's not feeding you, anything that is not reciprocating, I would strongly say, just remove it out of your space and have a definite, you got to have a definite chief aim of what it is that you want to accomplish. I ask a lot of people, what do they want? Why are you in this space doing this sovereign citizen stuff? What is it that you really want? And don't start saying, I want freedom. What does that mean? Freedom to do whatever you want to do? No, you shouldn't be able to do that. Not in an organized society. Okay, that is barbaric for you to even suggest that. Don't be foolish. Okay, don't be foolish. That nothing is ever going, no society is ever going to exist like that in the numbers, in mass numbers. There's going to always be rules that we are going to have to follow. So what is it that you want? Let me see. Not withhold good from those whom it's due. It is in the power of your hand to do so. Not to withhold the good of those who do. Why, yeah, but are you trying to say they're withholding good to you without looking at the evil that you do? What about all the evil that you do? That's what I'm sitting here thinking. I'm like, okay, are you just let he without sin cast the first stone? So you saying that you are without sin? Because that's how a lot of you talk all the time. A lot of you talk as if you are spotless, that you don't have any sins or any skeletons in your closet. And we all know that if anyone just took a quick look inside the closet of each one of your lives, they're going to find something probably compromising. Compromising of what you are projecting in the outer world. With your outer appearance. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't understand what it is what y'all, you're talking negatively about. I want to help all those who have ears to hear to be better. Yeah, good day, friend, good day. Well, remove it then. Looking good. I like this right here. This is a nice, I like that background. That's nice. That's nice. All right, so let me get into a little discussion about, the 7 principles tonight. And I wanted to talk about the spiritual, mental, and physical plane. And I think that was very important for people to understand. I remember when it was first taught to me, these planes, and when I was being introduced to all this language like planes, like spiritual plane and mental plane and physical plane, it really didn't make sense to me until I really got a hold of the 7 principles. Once I got a hold of the 7 principles, I understood it. The principles made everything very understandable, very understandable. But the mental, spiritual, and physical plane are just degrees of vibratory forces. And the best explanation that I can give that you can see empirically is water. How water goes through all the states, a solid, liquid, and a gas. A solid, liquid, and a gas. A gaseous state is like the state that the mental image exists in. And then there is the next state, liquid state, and then it goes into a solid. It's really a frequency. Water is just going through different rates of speed when it appears in all those different forms. Well, so is a thought projection when it is sent back to you. It's going back through different vibratory frequencies. They gradually are slowing down and until they materialize. And the universe, of course, it orders itself in such a way that you can actually receive whatever it is that you requested in the best possible way that will benefit everyone. It's not going to take anything from anybody adversely, to enrich you. Because the universe is about exchange too. That's another principle. It's about exchange. So you have to give something in order to get something. So there's some sort of exchange that is taking place as well. It's just when you understand these things, you'll understand why people give to people and do things like that and putting things in their spiritual bank account. There really is like a scientific explanation for a lot of things. Now, I'm not going to say that the nature of God, to know the nature of God, that'd be foolish. That would be foolish. But we can see the outer emanations of God, and that's what these principles are. And they govern everything in creation. And once you understand them, you begin to understand yourself, because all of those principles you have control over mentally. They all derive from your ability to think in a certain way, because the mind is a vibratory projector. It's going to project vibrations into the universe. And that's what everything in the universe is operating off of, frequencies and vibrations. So you're like this is why you got this title, God. Okay, it's not saying that you are the creator of the boundless universe. That's not what I mean when I say peace to the gods. The word El means God. All right, so when you see El, people put El on the end of their name, they're saying God. And of course, you got verses in the Bible, Genesis 3:22, Psalms 82:6 and John 10:34, where it called us gods. And but you got to understand what that meant. It wasn't saying that you're a god like Zeus or something like that. It's just saying you're a god insofar as you have the ultimate control. And the only thing the reason you wouldn't have the control is because of your lack of belief. Your lack of belief. You're not believing it to be so. And that's why I'm always saying the only way you can defeat a god is to convince them that they're not one. And if you can be convinced that you don't have any power, you will not have any power. That is the nature of the universe. And who would make you think that way? Wouldn't that be the works of a devil? Wouldn't be a very cunning devil make you think that you didn't have power? If the devil was going to do anything cunning as a liar and a deceiver, wouldn't that be it? Because wouldn't that be the one power that could give you power over all things in your life? What could be, like when Jesus said, if you should know the truth and the truth shall make you free. Well, what's freer than that? What's freer than finding out that you can create your life or materialize your reality into any form that you want? What is freer than that? Somebody please tell me. Tell me what's freer than that. Somebody would definitely want to keep that from you and people having knowledge of. I guarantee you that. They don't want you to have that knowledge of that, because they can't control it, because it begins on the inside of you. It's not nothing that is coming from the outside where they have the control. It's coming from the inside where you have the control. This is the reason why I'm always saying as well that, poor people think that outward circumstances affect inward conditions, but really it's inward conditions which affect outward circumstances. That's how it actually works. And you have to know that, but if people are trying to convince you it's outward circumstances that affect inward conditions, that you're reacting to things that are happening to you, but really you're reacting to things that are happening to you that you created, and you're reacting to it. And you don't know you created it because you don't know you have this creative power. So now you're reacting to things in your life, and you're the ones creating all these circumstances in your life. And then when somebody comes and tries to tell you, you look at them like they're crazy. And then some people, they have to do, they have to say, man, I got to get away from this dude because he's going to self-destruct. He don't know he has this power. And he keep hamstringing himself. I'm looking in the chat. The devil is in the details. Keep speaking the light. Yeah, well, that is the light. But that's what a cunning devil would do. He would convince you that you're not a god. You know, I think that's I can't think of a better way to disempower people is to make them think that they need to depend on something outside of themselves to save them. And then that makes them have to wait on them. And then when they never show up, then they start to lose faith because they think, that God, you know, that was the white man's God or what, you know, they start saying stuff like that because, you know, all the religions we're trying to do is to put you in a disciplined state of thinking. They're really supposed to be schools of thought, all right? They're just degrees. It's not the only thing. You know, once you do the religion, that's a degree. Then you move on to something else that's above that. So the religion, you don't discount the religions. You don't disrespect the religions because the religions are just simply, for so many years, it's been watered down. And men have put their own interpretations on it and their own flavors and different things like that. And it's descended down from 10,000 years from Egypt and all these ancient civilizations. This information, that's how old it is. And that's why you see the principles being demonstrated in all the different religions. And but when you know the principle, that's the only time you're going to be able to see it in all the different religions. But you got to understand the principles first. And you'll see the labels that they attach to everything, like God names, when they're really describing forces of nature. But they've kind of anthropomorphized these deities, you know, made them into their image and after their likeness. And, you know, you'll start to see all of this. And then it'll begin to make sense to you. And then ultimately, you're going to arrive at the conclusion that you have power over all things, and that's what the principles are for. The principles are what underlie the law of attraction. The law of attraction is composed of principles, mentalism. You know, corresponds, a thought corresponds with a vibratory frequency. That vibratory frequency has a polarity and a rhythm attached to it. Okay, it also has a gender. There's this active and passive forces that are always in play that people are calling, you know, the masculine and the feminine or the yin and the yang. These forces are always at work. And then also there's cause and effect. You know, if you do something a specific kind of way, there's always going to give a specific kind of result. So the only way to change anything is you have to change whatever it is that you're doing. All these principles you have to understand. And then that's why they say, well, it is insanity to keep doing the same thing, hoping for a different result, because that violates the principle of cause and effect. That's not how cause and effect operates. So this is, and you can listen to me and you can hear that, yeah, this is basic kind of logistical thinking that we're engaging in. You know, it's just a very logistical thinking. And that's why spirituality is a science. That's why it's a science. And then I'm going to tell you what you begin to see next. You begin to see that spirituality is a form of commerce. It's a form of commerce. You begin to see why you see in these movies where they're always offering somebody or they're offering some type of, you know, it's because it is commercial in nature. Commerce is based off these principles too. Commerce is based off these principles. That's why only a fool would go against capitalism. Capitalism is when people are rewarded for their efforts and their own ingenuity and creating something with their mind. Why would you get jealous of that? You can create something with your own mind and do exactly the same thing. But because you don't know that, oh, they're oppressing you. They're not oppressing you. They created a world in their own mind. If you don't want to be a part of their world, then create your own world. But don't get mad at them because they created the world that they wanted. They manifested the world that they wanted with their mind. And you played a part in that because you are not directing your own life. You're not the director of your own life. You're an actor in somebody else's life. You can't destroy what they have built mentally. You cannot prevent a man from receiving what is spiritually meant for him. Okay, you can't stop that. So you need to get out of the way and go create your own Garden of Eden. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what everybody can do. Everybody has that capability. And that's all we're saying. That's why when people play the role of the victim, it's like that victim mindset. That's why when you look in the religious texts, they're always trying to empower people. And, they're not preaching a victimhood. There's nothing spiritual about that. It's an empowering message. If you tell this mountain to be cast into the ocean, but do not doubt it in your heart, but believe the things that you have said as if they have happened, nothing shall be impossible to you. Nothing shall be impossible to you. This is how he was talking. He's saying stuff like this. And I'm like, that goes in alignment with universal principles. It's in perfect alignment with it. Say, look, if you just have a mindset focused on something and believe the things that you are saying, and then you have to think in now terms because the past doesn't exist and the future doesn't exist. Those are abstractions. Those are illusions. Okay. The only reality is the, now, the forever now. That's why everything has to be thought of now. You have to act now. These are things that you have to do for things to be drawn to you into your space. And then you won't have a reason to be a victim anymore. That victim role, you have to take accountability and responsibility for your life. And that's the only message that I'm having to you is because you are supposed to be calling yourself sovereign. Okay, and what is a sovereign? A sovereign is someone, first of all, that doesn't need the government. And you can't say, well, I'm the sovereign, but then you're trying to take advantage of benefits and privileges that the government offers. You can't do that. Okay, if you're going to be a sovereign, then you have to separate yourself and then you have to get your own land and you need to do your own thing. You need to mark out your territory and then you need to do your own thing. Okay, but you can't come into an area that is already has a collective and they already have a social compact. People have already all agreed, whether expressly or implicitly, because that's another thing that y'all seem to evade is like implied contracts. Everybody just wants to talk about express contracts as if implied contracts don't exist because implied contracts are dealing with your conduct. That's why nobody likes to talk about it or raise it in these echo chambers because it deals with conduct. And that's something that I've examined. I've examined that people do not want to adjust their conduct. They don't think that they're supposed to. That's what's really at issue here. People trying to impose themselves on the social order. They really are a form of terrorists, when you really think about it. And that's not me just saying it. I'm just examining it from a scientific eye, just how the person there, like, well, look, man, hold on. It's like everybody in society agrees on what the traffic laws are. Everybody in society has agreed to vote on issues and things of that nature. Okay, society at large has agreed on these things. What gives the right of a small contingent of people to try to come in and upset that? Okay, I'm not understanding that. And then you are wrong too, because your interpretations of the law are not accurate. This is the only thing that the issue I have. These are the issues that I have because I'm always, first of all, I'm starting from the position that you have power over all things. I'm hearing all of the wealthy people. This is how they talk. This is what they utilize. This is what all of them are utilizing to achieve things in life. Okay. And the things that they are utilizing, you have also. They are no different than you are. You have everything that they have. There was this, I got to talk about, it's called Plato's Allegory of the Cave. Plato's Allegory of the Cave. This is a very, very interesting story that, when I first heard it, it really stuck with me and it struck a chord because of the wisdom it delivers in such an impactful way. And, it goes about, it starts out with, there are three men in a cave and they were born in the cave. And in the cave behind them were lights that were lit. And so they could see shadows and they could see far out to the mouth of the cave. And at the mouth of the cave, they would see other shadows just walking by, and they would hear sounds coming from outside and so forth. And they would all debate amongst themselves as to what exactly it was. You know, they were giving their theories, what the shadows were and what the sounds were that they were hearing from the mouth of the cave. They had never ventured outside of the cave. They were born in the cave and never ventured outside, never had the let me say curiosity. I'll say curiosity to venture outside of the cave. Until one day, one of them did. He went outside the cave, and when he stepped into the light, at first the light blinded him, and he couldn't see. And then slowly his vision started to adjust, and he began to see. And then when he saw sounds and lights, and he saw people. He saw the shadows were just shadows on the ground, but there were really something real projecting it. And it was a whole world that he never even could imagine existed. On the other side, outside the mouth of the cave. And he got real excited. And he said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell my brothers. And he went back into the cave and he told his brothers everything that he had saw, all the lights, all the beauty, all the wonder that he had seen when he ventured outside of the cave. And then his brothers grabbed him and binded him and tied him down, and then took a boulder and took it and plugged up the mouth of the cave. And they said that no one can ever go outside of the cave anymore, because when people do, it drives them crazy. I want you to think about that story. I want you to really think about that. Was that's a deep story. What if you are the brothers in the cave? Just what if? Did you stop to even consider that? I think that's the mark of humility, when at all times you can be consciously aware of the fact that you may be wrong in your assessment of something. I'm not saying that I am, but I will take, if somebody wanted to present evidence to me that I was, I'm open to examine it. You know what I'm saying? I'll look it over and objectively, you know. What they got in? What language was they speaking to each other in? The allegory is still active today. That allegory of the cave, I think that y'all should think about that story. And who are the people in the cave? The people who are in the dark, who don't know who they are or the power that they possess. Those are the people in the cave. The brother who ventured outside the cave went and got the knowledge, the laws, and came back to deliver them to you and tell you, here's the roadmap, here's the blueprint. This is how this actually operates. Nobody ever told us before. We were born and raised in an ignorant state. Nobody ever came and gave us the manual to how the mind actually operates, or how manifest reality actually operates. Even though it's been written down for centuries and have gone through different generations and different epochs of time, you know, these same principles have just survived down through time. They're present everywhere, even in the Bible. You know, Psalms 9:1, I believe it's 9:1, where it talks about wisdom has hewn out her 7 pillars. You know, it says her 7 pillars. You know, her wisdom is always characterized as a female in the Bible, always, or in every religion, not just in the Bible. Every religion sees wisdom as a female, or Mother Nature, or they give them all these different names, Isis, and all these different names that she has. But these are nothing but a description of a force of nature that they've anthropomorphized. But it's one of the principles of reality, how they operate. There is a masculine and feminine energy. You know, Mother Nature is receptive. You know, if you send a thought into her, she gives it birth back like kind. If you put a seed into Mother Earth, she will sprout back like kind. If you put a seed in a woman, she will sprout back like kind. The feminine energy, they will take whatever you have and then duplicate it and then multiply it. You know, they are the gateway. They're the gateway. They are the gateway. And that's why I can see why life comes through them. But they are the gateway. And so I can also see why they would want to destroy any type of relationship that the masculine and feminine have and make them really start to really despise each other. You know, that would be a masterful thing to do as well, you know, to make because those two energies need each other. And what better way to do it than to confuse the energies? Okay, you start demonstrating masculine energies and you start manifesting feminine energies. And now you're not abiding by your true nature. You're in a caricature of yourself. You know, it's not every other animal on this planet abides by their nature. Every other animal on this planet. But you're supposed to be more intelligent than the animals. You're supposed to be more intelligent than the animals. You have more free will because you have a higher intelligence. That's what free will is. You know, you get your higher intelligence. You're not governed by instinct. You're governed by deliberation and comprehension. Comprehension. Peace to the guys. I've been making progress. Thank you. Please leave this live up. All right, I'll leave it up. Yeah. I like this mic. I like how I look on the screen. I like how I look. Yeah, it's nice. Anyway, you know, this spiritual, mental, and physical plane, you know, once you understand that there's vibratory forces, you know, they're just frequencies, you know, just moving at different rates of speed. I like how in the Kybalion they gave a good illustration of a top, you know, how you can roll a top and it goes, and the sound gets higher and higher and higher until it's inaudible to the ear. It's going into a frequency range that you cannot detect. And there are states of existence that you can't detect. A dog whistle is a good example. A dog can hear it, you can't hear it. So it's out your frequency range. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. All right, so this speed, once you understand that and that everything is connected through vibrations, that's a very important thing to understand. Everything is connected through vibratory forces. Everything in the universe. Everything in the universe is a frequency. You know, there's a very beautiful way of saying that. Somebody said, I forgot how they said it, but basically it was creation can only occur when there's movement. Creation can only occur when there's movement. If there is no movement, there is no creation. Because everything that we see is vibrating at a certain speed, a different rate of speed. But if it wasn't vibrating, would it be? So that's right there is what I mean is, so we're in a sea of vibratory forces. I think that needs to be understood because now that brings it out of the realm of mythology and into the realm of science, because frequencies are something that can be measured. And we know there are, you know, an infinite number of frequencies, an infinite number. But we live in a sea of them. And those frequencies, they follow certain laws. They follow certain laws too. You know, I don't try to filter my mind through it is very a laborious activity, but you know what? It's there's this thing called the law of allowance, and it's almost like you got to make your request. The fight is by allowing. You're not worrying about it. You're not trying to force it into something. It's you made your request, and now you just know that it's coming, and you're relaxed. You're in a relaxed state because you know that it's coming. This is how strong your faith is, because you just, I'm not worried about anything. It's on the way. It's coming. Matter of fact, you're already acting like you already have it. You're already making the order, and the money ain't hit the account yet. That's just how much you feel. This mindset. Nothing is still. We can try with the mind. It's very tough to keep filtering out what it say right here. If esteem a few years ago, you mentioned the levels of man. Please touch on that again. It seems fit for what I'm saying. Oh, yeah. There was this scale of, I want you to imagine a scale, a 7-layer scale. And this is man. Okay, this is man. These are the different degrees of a man. Okay, so at the very bottom level is the beast man, the man who's in a very animalistic state. He's completely controlled by his physical passions. He has no self-control. He doesn't reason well. He operates off instinct. He basically does what all the other animals do: sleep, eat, and reproduce. Sleep, eats, and reproduces. I want you to think about that. Are you the kind of individual that your life just simply amounts to someone who is sleeping, eating, and reproducing? Because that's on the beast level. So then on the next level, we got mankind, which is a kind of a man. He's not quite a man, but he's a kind of man. Mankind. And then the next one is a man. Okay, a man is the next one. The next one is a human. Human. The next level up to that is a human being. And then the next level after that is supreme being. Or if we want to say God, they get a God. Okay, and so how do we measure that? What are the levels of development that you reach from there? When I had 7 of them, I said beast man, mankind, man, human being, and then supreme being. I think that's the 7. It's like a being, a state of being, and then there's the supreme being. But it's 7 levels that you're trying to reach. And they're just really, all those are just markers for levels of development in your ascension, in your discipline. That's just really talking about discipline. What level you're reaching as far as controlling, mental forces through mental discipline. So that's all the measure it is, and that comes through repetition and exercise. But yeah, I think everybody can see there are different levels of a man. To reach this stellar man, it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of discipline. I'm not saying I've reached this level, but it is definitely something to aspire to. But it all comes through discipline in your thinking, discipline in your actions. How everything you engage in on a daily basis. What are you listening to on the YouTube? Look at your algorithm and what's coming across your algorithm. What is your algorithm saying about you? And you're sitting here complaining about you don't have any money. But look at your algorithm and see where you spend the majority of your time. Where is the majority of your mental forces being directed? Wouldn't it be reasonable to at least experiment and try to redirect your mental forces in a different direction and see whether or not the theory is true? And esteem views that go, let me see. I love to be a giver, but I have learned the hard way not to throw your pearls to swine. No, you don't have to throw your pearls to swine. Just basically, whatever's, remember what I said, we're in a sea of vibratory frequencies. Whatever is meant for someone, they will get. It's not, nothing's going to stop them from getting it. You know, what's meant for a person is meant for a person. Everybody is at different points in their progress as far as their development spiritually. They're at different points. Everybody's at some place. Not everyone is at the same place. And not everyone's at the same place. Everything is not for everybody. You know, I think that the biggest thing that people can learn are the natural law principles, because that will help guide you and speed you through, and you'll be able to see what is truly man-made versus what is truly purely spiritual. You begin to see that. You know, you'll begin to scrape off all the man-made stuff off the spirituality, and what you'll have left is just pure, unadulterated spirituality, which are an observing of the spiritual laws and natural laws that, if we want to say, were brought into creation by God, if you want to use that term. You know, no one's not saying there's some sort of universal underlying presence that is intelligent, that pervades the universe. You know, I think that's the best description. You know, when people describe the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present in those terms, you know, instead of anthropomorphizing God and making him in your image and after your likeness and putting him inside of his creation called heaven, and then expressing human characteristics like anger and, you know, jealousy and things like this. You know, we have to think about these things. You know, we have to think about these things. You know, what is truly being said? We have to examine that. What is truly being said? Has this description, religion, kind of colored exactly what is going on? Is it truly something that needs to be termed religion? Or is it just really some sort of spiritual development of the human being? Bringing them into conscious connection with who they truly are. Bringing them into conscious connection with it. Making them aware that they have these abilities to do these things. And it is challenging, like they're talking about in the chat. It's very challenging. You know, it is a very laborious activity to try to control your mind throughout the day. It really is. I struggle with it on a daily basis myself. You know, because you can get into business and be doing things, and then a hiccup might happen or something like that, and you have to address it, and you have to address it in such a way where you have to be even keeled. You can't let it rattle you. You know, you got to remain even keeled. I know we headed right here, and I know that whatever I need is going to be provided for me when the point in time when I need it. You know, this is how faith is demonstrated. You know, you just stay even keeled. Because them tests going to come. I'm going to tell you, you can read other books and other people will give the same description of how the tests come. Like when you're about to be blessed, okay, a lot of chaos is going to be introduced into your life. This is what people will say is the devil. That old devil comes. And then all these negative things start to happen to you. You know, and all of them are to introduce fear and doubt. All of these happenings that are put into your life are here to introduce fear and doubt. And those are the enemies that you have to fight against. Fear and doubt. Doubt, those two things take away your power. Those two things take away your power. You have to get them under control. And the only way you can get fear under control is through knowledge. And that's why the scientific approach, I believe, to spirituality is the one that needs to be approached, because, you know, that can be verified by empirical evidence. It can be verified. It brings it out of the realm of what is the word I want to use? I don't want to use the word mythology. I want to use the word, I guess, theology, you know, maybe theories, which are basically men's interpretations of men's interpretations, you know, essentially, you know. But what can we observe? That's why I like studying natural laws because they're the laws of nature. So that means we can observe it. We know that there are two sides to everything. There's an in, out, up, down, right, left, hard, soft, light, day, man, woman, in, out. Everything has two sides. There are two sides to everything. So that's where this reciprocal action is introduced. This is where reciprocity also is necessary. There has to be some sort of exchange. This is why the scientists, they came up with a term, the universe abhors a vacuum. That means that when you take something in space and remove it, something else is going to rush in to fill in the space because there really isn't any empty space. So in order to receive something, you have to exchange something. You have to empty the cup to receive something. So that's a principle of nature. So once you understand that, okay, now how I'm going to incorporate that into my life? How I'm going to demonstrate reciprocity? I'm going to give so I can continue to get. How am I going to give with a pure heart so I can receive in abundance? All these things are real. These are real. This is not like, I'm not trying to be religious right now. This is what has to be done. It can be explained scientifically. You have to be in these vibratory states if you want to get the desired result. You have to be in those vibratory states. How you get there, there are many ways to do it, different methodologies, and that's why you have all the different religions, because you can utilize different methodologies to achieve the same end, because we're talking about vibratory forces. So people might say, oh, put you up a vision board, or have you some sort of affirmation that you say to yourself, just something like that. These are things that, all these are just different rituals that people are engaging in because there has to be some sort of repetition done in a proper way that's going to impress upon the subconscious mind. Because the subconscious mind, which is the receptive energy, the feminine, is going to receive whatever you give her. And it has to be clear. It's all scientific. It's scientific, but there is an intelligence behind it, because when the tests come, the negative stuff start coming, that's when you realize there's some sort of intelligence in the universe that's trying to see whether or not you really want it. Oh, do you really want that? Let's see if you really want it. Let's see, do you really want this that you're talking about? Or are you going to do and just, curse God and die? That it's real like that, especially if you're going to become an entrepreneur. You better understand what I'm talking about right here, because you're going to get tested. Because the only thing, the thing about being an entrepreneur is that you are the leader. And sometimes you could be walking down a path that hasn't been tread a lot. And then there are roads that a lot of other people have tread, and you can take direction from that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to end up walking your own road if you want to get to the levels you want to get to. And you're going to be tested on that road, because there's a whole bunch of stuff you're going to encounter. And it's going to test your resolve. You want to keep pushing forward. There isn't any achievement without some sort of, effort. No. And it follows the principle. It follows the principle. He says, definitely is an intelligence operating in the universe, operating beyond our understanding. Exactly. I agree with that, beyond our understanding. I think that the Moors, they have a very beautiful way of saying it, that, what they said, he said, the finite cannot circumscribe the infinite. The finite cannot circumscribe the infinite. That's you trying to describe the infinite, but you're a finite being. Trying to define something that's infinite, that has always existed. There was not a point in time it never existed. But that's hard for a human being to comprehend. That befuddles the mind. You're like, what? Never, always existed. So when did he decide to make us? So Then they come back with something else. They said there was never a time when man has not been. And then that was cold too. But then the Bible, they say, well, he blew their spirit into man and he became a living soul. See, everybody is saying the same thing, that you are part of this spirit. In Zen Buddhism, they'll say, you are, that God is the ocean and you're a teaspoon out of the ocean. Like in degree, different in degree, but like in quality. Like in quality, but different in degree. But you possess the same characteristics because you derive from the source. That's what's animating you right now. But the thing is what's funny, this is what it seems to be the cruel joke, because you're brought here without instructions on how to use this power. And this is what they say in the Bible, you have to be reborn again, because that's just another way of saying that everything that you have been taught is wrong. We need to completely wipe your mind. Everything you've been told about how manifest creation works is wrong. They've been just giving you everything incorrect. This is not how the universe operates. It operates from, it will give you whatever you want. It was created in love to give you whatever that you desire. However, there are rules that you have to follow. There's a character you have to demonstrate. You have to demonstrate faith. I think in every religion I've read, it talks about faith. There has to be some sort of belief. The gateway through it is belief, because you've never been on that side of the fence before. You don't know what's on the other side. But you have to believe that whatever's on the other side is what you are looking for. So there's a gateway of belief that you're going to go through. You have to open that door. Belief is the gateway into knowledge. Because, you're going to know if your religion was right once you pass away. You ain't going to believe anymore once you pass away. Once we pass over to the other side, that's when you're going to know if your religious belief was correct or not. That's when you're going to know. Right now, we theorize a lot of things, and that's why I don't like to engage in that aspect of things. How I like to approach it is from an understanding of the principles that underlie all the religions. And then from that, I can examine whether or not the tenets of the religion are in harmony with these laws. And a lot of times they are. They're just expressed in a different way, and you got to be able to decipher it. And that's why they say principles are few, but methods are many. When you look at all the different religions, they represent methodology, but at their core, there are principles. And those principles have to be there if that religion is going to continue. Because religions can be good gateways into enlightenment. I'm not going to say that they're not. I will say that, like when you go to the churches and things and they just preach to you and things like that might not be too good. But I'm talking from the standpoint of what the book is trying to express to you. I'm not looking at what the interpreters of the book are trying to say. I'm looking at it with my eyes. Okay, is this book demonstrating natural law principles? Are natural law principles contained in this book? And with my understanding of those principles, when I read this book, can I see those principles being demonstrated in this book? I don't care if Jesus never even existed. This is what the benefit of growing up and your grandmother reading Aesop's fables to you. Okay, Aesop's fables is where the moral of the story came from. And sometimes these stories would be told with talking animals and so forth. But it was done with an intention to teach you a lesson, okay, a moral lesson, okay? That was the object of the game, not for you to believe that rabbits really talk and mice really talk. They're just using, as a child, these are what the books that we read. But there would always be some wisdom contained in it, a moral to the story. Okay, well, that's the same thing. You two caught up on who the identity of the characters are when you need to be looking at what was it they were trying to convey. What was the message? What was the message they were trying to convey? What were they trying to get man to understand? That is what you need to be looking at. He's a messenger. He's sent here to be an example. I'm sent here to be an example. And then he had messengers coming to tell you things? What is the substance of the message? Was it to sit around and wait for your salvation to fall out of the sky? Was that the message? I don't think so. That's not what I've been looking at. The message is, like it said in Luke 17:21, look ye neither here nor there, but the kingdom of heaven is in you. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all things will be added to you. Look ye neither here nor there, for the kingdom of heaven is in you. They try to change that into in your midst. When you saw that right there, you can say, you know what, somebody trying to hide something. See, those are the little markers that you will see that somebody's trying to hide something from you. Oh, no, we don't want, because I'm going to tell you, that's the only thing they don't want. That you can do whatever you want to do. You can believe whatever you want to believe. You can be a part of any religion you want to. The one thing that they don't want you to ever do is to look inward. They don't care anything on the outside. You looking outward, hey, do whatever you want to do. They'll sit back and won't even be monitoring you as long as you're doing that. You know, they're like, you know, he good. He on remote, you know, he on cruise control right now. You know what I'm saying? He's going to keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again. We ain't have to worry about that one right there. He'll probably never generate an original thought in his mind until the day he dies. I'm just saying. This is real, what I'm saying. This is what they want. If you see, you will see the continuity of all things as well. And I believe that this is the doorway to getting rid of the prejudices and the I'm better than you and the self-righteous people and everything like that, when everybody can come on to one accord, when everybody comes into a conscious realization that you are responsible for creating the kind of life that you want, which should be common sense in any state of affairs. However, I'm talking in the sense of natural laws, making the discovery that how you choose to think, okay, is what is being demonstrated to you in your life right now. And if you're not happy with what is going on in your life right now, then you need to change whatever it is that you're thinking about into something else, into a consistent pattern, okay, of positivity, or at least making strides toward whatever it is that you truly want. No one can make you happy. It's not another person's responsibility to make anyone happy. That's a violation of natural laws. Because to achieve happiness, you have to be happy first. You have to be that which you wish to become. That's one of the secrets you have to demonstrate too. You know, you have to force yourself to have a feeling that you already have it. That's the part of the noun. You have to force yourself to be happy, even though don't have anything to be happy about, but you have to make yourself happy in order to attract more happiness to you. And that's where the difficulty comes in. That's where it makes it difficult for people to do, because that's not easy to do. It's not easy to try to pretend to be happy. I'm trying to pretend to be happy. Who can do that? Your feeling, and that's why people who try to do it in relationships, it don't ever last, because the internal feeling doesn't change. You're gonna still feel the same way on the inside, even though you're demonstrating something on the outside. You're gonna still keep feeling the same way on the inside. So you might as well be real with yourself. Don't be fake. Let me tell you, if you can't be real with yourself, you can't be real with nobody. The ultimate liar is a person that lies to themselves. That's the ultimate liar. You lying to yourself. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to address those characteristics that have been embedded in your subconscious mind, because we're just talking about mental habits right now, how they have to be adjusted because they may not be conducive to success. You know, and like if you're a woman out there, you know, the things that I'm saying, you know, men, you know, you have to vibe with that man. You know, you have to see where he's headed. Where is he going? What is it he's trying to achieve? How can you approach that and fit a way that you can fit your life inside of that? Because he's not here to modify himself to you. He's on a destination with purpose. He's on a goal. He's on a mission. He's a protector and a provider. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. We got over here spoken truths. Yeah. He said, Brother Yusuf, what does 666 mean? You know, a lot of people are trying to me talking about 6 protons, 6 neutrons, you know, all that stuff. You know, that was something that that actually Dr. Malachi Z. York created in his book, The Holy Tablets. If you're just really interested in seeing that, that was the first place I ever saw it. And that was probably in 1999 or something like that. So I'm just giving you the origin of that. When you see people talk about, you know, the 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, and, you know, and all it, you know, you see them doing that, that's where it came from. And you can verify it right now because you can get a copy of the Holy Tablets and go in there and verify it for yourself. But where I probably digressed a little bit is when you actually read Revelations 13:18, it says, let he with wisdom calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And then they have, you know, portions in there that talk about you should not be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. You should not be able to buy or sell without the mark of the beast. Well, then we can look at Visa, and we can see that the first VI is the Roman numeral 6. The S is how they write sigma in Greek. And the A is off of a Babylonian chart where A has the equivalency of a 6. I can show you that chart. It's a really interesting chart. But you can see that is people are using it to buy and sell with the mark of the beast. So you will not be able to buy or sell without the mark. Also computers, you know, they fit into that framework as well. However, what I think that, this is what I think that man should be, this is just my opinion. I'm just giving you my opinion now because I don't want to have any influence over anybody's belief system like that, because your belief system is your own. Oh my God, I was going to say. Oh yeah, with the 666. When you look at barcodes, okay, barcodes have 666 on them. The first bar is a 6, the middle bar is a 6, and the end bar is a 6. It's on a lot of different things, and if you open your eyes, we used to talk about all this stuff all the time. Procter and Gamble, anybody can Google this right now. Put in Procter and Gamble has 666 on all of their items, and you'll see it for yourself how they incorporated the number 666 into their advertisements. You can go over there and look at it right now. And then allegedly the president coming on Phil Donahue saying that, yeah, they, you know, I don't want to slander anyone, but because I haven't been able to find that Phil Donahue interview, but there are rumors about it floating all around the internet that, you know, they said they were with the Church of Satan and that there was nothing that the Christians could do about it because their numbers have already gotten so big that they can come out into the public and nobody can do anything about it. So, you know, a lot of times when I have a conservative position, you know, it's my awareness of these things too that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind. You know, I'm aware of this. How these people are. I saw your talk about 666 on one of his videos. Yeah. Well, you know, it was, you know, I don't think that it is anything that, you know, that you have to like, that you're supposed to be afraid of or anything like that, because that's why we're talking about the natural laws. The only demon that really is evil, the only evil there truly is ignorance. Ignorance can be ignorance can be a demon. It can make people take each other's life because of something ignorant or something, you know, somebody was lacking in some area intellectually or something. It's an evil. You can see it, you know, from my position, you can see it. You can see it, you know, and people's character, you know, how they act. You can see it. Let me see. Symbolism is abundant around. Symbolism is blown around. Now I got these bright lights in my face, and I have to do something with them. They are real bright. But didn't they give a better, everything looks better? I ought to show y'all. Yeah, let me show you. Nah, I don't want to do that. It's going to mess up my, because I got it on a green screen. I was going to show you I was going to take the camera and show you the lights so I can see what I'm talking about. Background is good, camera's good, sound is good, you're looking good and sounding professional. I appreciate that. But back to the discussion where we were talking about the 7 principles. And then the different spiritual planes and our vibratory forces. This is when I began to synthesize all the different religions and began to understand how they are all fall under that umbrella of, when you read the Kybalion, it tells a story of how all the people from all over the world, there was a time when Egypt was the fount of knowledge, where everybody went to Egypt to get knowledge. And then people would come back from Egypt with their knowledge, and then that knowledge would be developed over time into these different religions. Like if you look at in Islam, there's an Allah, but there's also an Allat. There's a masculine and feminine there, but they choose to suppress that they were worshiping before, Muhammad brought in the oneness of Allah. They were worshiping a female deity called Allat, who was female, which ties back into Isis, back into Egypt. When you see the characteristics of this female god and the story that's behind her, you begin to see a pattern. And you're like, man, this all came from some central point, because every religion gonna put their face on it. All of a sudden the characters look like them. The words, the descriptors are their own words that they choose to use, In Hebrew, they may say Elo, and then in Arabic, they may say Allah, and then Aramaic, they may say Allah. Everybody's using different names and things like that. But you got to look past all of that. That's why you have to be looking for the principle, because all that can be deceptive, but the principle is always going to be there. That's where you find truth, and identifying the principle something is operating under. You look for that. And then when you can see that clearly, you know that you got something that is within the bounds of law in some degree. It's necessary. I feel evil is subconscious ignorance at times. Other times it's intentional destruction, trying to cover the light and darkness and feed off the response of the innocent. I like subconscious ignorance. Yes, it is a form of subconscious ignorance. I would probably characterize it as, it's almost like having a storage device and never using it. You never put anything on the tape. So I wouldn't say that it's evil. The only evil is you haven't put it into operation. I wouldn't say, I don't know about that, calling it evil. I feel evil is subconscious ignorance. See, but what you call in subconscious ignorance is meaning that your subconscious mind has not been impressed, intentionally by the conscious mind, because that is how that play goes. Okay. Conscious mind is the seat of the wheel. That's where decisions are made. Okay, those decisions can be impressed upon the subconscious mind through repetition, and then it's placed into the subconscious mind, and it will begin to subconsciously work behind the scenes, But that's what they talk about, character development, that you have to have a certain character to do these things too, because there's certain characters that are antithetical to you utilizing some sort of formula in trying to get to the law of attraction, try to make it work for you. It's not going to work for you until you are at a certain vibratory frequency. And you get there by honoring these different laws, understanding how each of these laws operate. And it brings you into a state of mastery. You know, you get to a state of mastery, and this is what you see people when they get wealthy and things like that. You know, they've mastered it. And you can't, and some people do it unconsciously, but everybody masters the same principle. Even if they don't know what I'm talking about right now, if you look at their life is them abiding by these principles in some kind of way. True, true. I'm looking at the screen over here. The price of the first Apple computer cost. Yeah, it did. I remember that. That's true. I think that's absolutely true. The first Apple computer was 660. I think I remember that ad too. I think I remember that ad. I remember that ad. Words are good to master. In the beginning was the word. They have that in a lot of the religions as well. You know, like say kun fire kun being exist, of this speaking things into existence. So, you know, it's dealing with some sort of vibratory frequency, some sort of vibratory forces. And it begins with the mind. What's being said starts in the mind. So it's all vibrations. That's all I'm trying to say. So the point of me doing this, because I don't want to get off track, was so that people would stop and understand why I criticize people who demonstrate a victim mentality. Okay, I'm criticizing them not to be abusive to them. I'm criticizing them because I'm trying to shake them because they're refusing to wake up to the truth of the matter is that they have power over their life and over everything, that nobody is taking anything away from them. Okay, nobody's taking anything away from you. You're just choosing to think that somebody has, and therefore somebody has. But all you have to do is choose to think in a different way that somebody hasn't, and all of a sudden nobody hasn't, because you will manifest the kind of reality that you want. That is how it works. Great responsibility. Never be a victim. Like, that's all I'm saying. It's like, how can you take control of your life if you're constantly playing the role of the victim? And I'm not saying that injustices don't occur. They obviously do. Injustices do occur. I'm not trying to insinuate that. However, there was that person is still ultimately responsible for the injustice that occurred to them because they were vibrating at a certain frequency, even though they were not thinking about whatever it is that came into their life, the untoward circumstance. However, they had a vibratory match with that, and that brought that chaos into their life. And that's why one of the prerequisites, you always got to be in a positive state. You know, you always have to be in this positive state of mind. When something happens to you, you know, you have to say, that's okay. The reason that bad thing happened must be to push me. I'm getting closer to whatever it is that I'm going to achieve. Because that's where like the tests come, and you know, this is where you see the intelligence of the universe, where it always seems to bring these tests, and it's always in a very wise way. And they hit you too. They sting. They sting. They sting. They go. Sometimes they're serious tests. Victims are hard to reach because they're looking outward, blame everyone else. They're operating from the position of from the outside in. And that's what I'm saying. How can you get a person who thinks like that to change their thinking? Okay, that's the challenge. You see what I'm saying? This is why it's a challenge. This is why a lot of people just refuse to deal with the kind of people. And then you begin to think that you're being oppressed, when really it is, you're just being put in some sort of, they're being put in some sort of containment center, you know, to get you away from everybody because, they don't want to be contaminated by the way that you think. Wealthy people don't want to be contaminated by that victim shit. I'm trying to tell you, they understand that they are the ones that are in control. Why would they want to be around a victim all the time? All they're seeing is a person who refuses to wake up. That's all that's all they're seeing. A person who refused to wake up. Peace. That's all I'm saying. So when you think about it in terms of what I'm saying, victims are hard to reach. Let me see. Health as well. Losing weight with nice skin. Yeah, I'm losing weight. I mean, I try. I don't eat any. I'm not eating any processed foods. That's number one. I don't touch processed foods. And when you're getting very strong when you go into the grocery store and you can resist a lot of processed food that you used to get before, like potato chips. I like a little bag. You say, oh, this little bag of potato chips ain't gonna hurt me. I'll just eat it this one time. Well, no, yes, it is going to hurt you. So when you operating from that state, that any little thing you do is going to hurt you. Now, can you control yourself and discipline yourself with that understanding in place and be consistent in different situations? And then also there's the, making sure I eat right, natural foods, exercise, and then it's about ordering your life in such a way where you got a schedule. Like I have to be on a schedule. I have to be on a schedule. You can't just be floating around, on a daily basis. You need to be on a schedule, doing something at all times. You have to have a routine. You do. Said, be happy when you see others winning, and you can be winning. That's absolutely true. You have to be, you have to be positive about what somebody else achieved. It's just being in a state of positivity. That's all. Positive energy has a certain vibratory frequency. Jealousy, envy, all these other negative, they have a certain vibratory frequency too, and it's not conducive to happiness. Can you see that if you're demonstrating those emotions, those characteristics, and the universe brings back to you in like kind? Why would anybody want to experience that? There's nothing pleasant about any of those emotional feelings. So it would stand to reason that all I have to do is adjust and start thinking in terms of what makes me happy and actually be happy, be that what I wish to become. And then now I draw from those universal energies into my life. And now I start experiencing exactly what I just faked it until I made it happen. That's how it works. It works that way. You have to convince yourself that you already have whatever it is that you want, and demonstrate that through emotions. You can't fake it just with the intelligence alone. The authenticity of it comes through the emotions. The authenticity of it comes through the emotions. So you have to be able to emotionally feel yourself as already having whatever it is that you want. That's not easy to do, especially not consistently on a daily basis. That's not easy to do. And therein is the challenge. Now you understand the road that you have to walk. Can you do that? Can you be vigilant enough on a daily basis to make sure that you continuously think about what it is that you want all the time? I'm just saying. It said there's 101 ways that negative things can happen to us. Well, yeah. I mean, but is it negative? Like I remember one time I was almost in a homeless situation, and I got kicked out of. I was with a friend. He got evicted. What happened was when I moved from LA back to Atlanta, I went from Atlanta up to Seattle to stay with this chick. And when I got up there, she flipped on me and everything. And I just jumped back in the car and just kept it trucking. I didn't even unpack or nothing like that. I just kept moving and went to the next destination, which was Atlanta. And it took me about 2 weeks to make the drive because I didn't hurry. I would drive probably about 3 hours a day, pull over. I think it was like a 42-hour drive or something like that. But I would only drive a couple of hours a day. I wouldn't try to kill myself driving. And, I made money on the internet. So, I'd stay at a hotel, do whatever I need to do, and then get up the next day and go. And, man, just traveling all the way from Seattle to Atlanta. I get to Atlanta, my homeboy, I don't have a place to stay. I called him up. I said, yo, I need a place to stay. He said, yeah, I got you. Okay. He let me crash at his crib. I hit him off with $500. And then the very next day, he had a nice house, too, different. I had my own room, everything like that. The very next day, this happened the very next day, the marshal shows up at the door. He beating on the door. It's a police beat. I'm like, damn, who beating at the door? Because that sound like the police. And it was the marshal. And he had this look on his face and asked, am I, with my homeboy's name? I said, no, I'm just staying here. He said, well, this is an eviction. And so they came in, took everything in the house and threw it out in the front yard. Everything. So I called my boy up. I said, yo, you might need to come home. You're getting evicted. I said, you keep the $500 because I think you need it. And so then I called up an ex-girlfriend of mine. I said, look, I need a place to stay. And she said, yeah, you can stay here one day. And then I was thinking, I was going to try to finesse her into staying longer. It didn't work. So I left from there and I went and stayed in a hotel. And it was a cheap hotel too at first. I couldn't stay there for long. And the whole time I was trying to figure out how to build my website, because I didn't have a website at the time. I wasn't making any money. And I was just learning how to build a website. And I'm trying to figure out how to put my shopping cart in. I'd almost given up. And then right when I gave up, I told myself, no, don't give up. As soon as I said, no, don't give up, and I went right back to work, I figured it out. I'm telling you, it's almost like the universe is testing you on your resolve at all times. These obstacles that are put in your place, they're meant to deter you. They're meant to see whether or not you're going to give up. That's what it's all about. That's why they said that the only ingredients to success is having a definite chief aim and a refusal to give up. Those are the only two ingredients to success. It don't have anything to do with how many degrees you have or anything like that. It's, do you have a definite chief aim? Do you have a goal? Do you see it clearly? And will you not let anything stop you? Nothing can stop you. Because what's trying to stop you are going to be the tests that the universe is going to be throwing at you. So you need to expect them because they are going to present themselves to you. And you have to remind yourself of that while you're going through it. Trust me, man. It's almost, the universe is almost like a game sometimes. You feel that you choose this road or the road chooses you. Thanks for speaking the truth. That's really nice right there. You choose this road or do the road choose you? That's a very nice. I think that every day is a choice because we have free will. So life is nothing but a series of decisions on a daily basis, which is just another way of saying cause and effect. Because when you make a choice, you set in motion a causation that has a specific effect. And that's how we find out whether or not we had made a good decision or a bad decision, because we don't know the effect of it. When you know the effect of it, that's when you're exercising wisdom and prudence, all right? Because you've studied it and you say, well, look, I know that negative circumstances always come back to me the same way. So if I'm choosing to engage in negative habits, which at any time I can change myself, okay, you are electing to walk down a specific road. You're electing to, and you can change, you can get off that road at any point you want to. But that has to be your decision. It can only be your decision. You have to decide that you want to walk a different road in a different way. And usually what should guide you in doing that are the natural laws. Okay, how am I going to adjust my character so I can be in a harmonious relationship with Mother Nature? I'm going to use the feminine characterization of her, with Mother Nature. How can I be in a loving relationship with Mother Nature and demonstrate to her that I honor her laws. You know, that should be the first thing that you're thinking about. It should be the first thing that you're thinking about. How can I do that? Your approach to it can be whatever you want. It can be whatever you want, as long as it is in alignment with how the laws operate. That's all I can say. I hope I'm explaining this the right way. Is that sometimes it sounds like I'm starting to sound kind of crazy, and I'm not trying to sound crazy, but every day when I put these things to work in my own life, and I've done pretty well for myself at times in my life, and but I also see what are the things that can stop me from achieving certain plateaus, and it's always within me. I'm always looking within me, and it always is, can I bring myself to discipline myself to do what I need to do? Like get in shape, okay? That's on you. Can you bring yourself to discipline yourself to get in shape? There's nobody else who's gonna do that but you. That's a decision you have to make. There's gonna be a corresponding effect associated with that decision. So the road that you choose is predicated on the decisions that you make. It's all still on you, and you can get off any road that you want to at any time just simply by adjusting your thinking, simply by adjusting your habitual thoughts that you carry around every day. It's your habitual thoughts that I'm talking about, that you carry around every day, the thoughts that you have out of habit. That's what needs to be adjusted. And you can only replace something. You can't get rid of a habit. You have to replace a habit. Once again, the universe abhors a vacuum. There's exchange. All right, this polarity thing that's in natural laws, you have to change it from one polarity to another polarity, to its opposite polarity. And the only way you can do that is, first of all, you have to be honest with yourself. You need to make an honest assessment of yourself and be able to look at yourself and see what your negative characteristics are, and then write those on a piece of paper, and then understand that each of those negative characteristics has a corresponding opposite positive, like good, bad, hard, soft. This is what the doctrine of polarity is about. Okay, this is mental alchemy, where now you choose to think in the opposite direction habitually. But that's going to take effort at first. It's going to take effort. They say it takes about 18 days to change a habit. It's going to take effort at first. And that's where the work goes in, the effort. You're not going to be able to bypass that. You have to put in the effort. Everything in the universe honors strength. Mental strength, spiritual strength, physical strength. Nothing is honoring weakness. No. My avocado tree stopped producing. I started talking to it and touched it, and the tree is full this year. Going to be giving some of these away. That's true. Plants do respond to human being speech. They actually do. Thank you for the truth you bring to light. Hey, I appreciate it. We're just domesticated sheep on somebody's land. You may be that, but that's not what. See how I want y'all to see that right there. But see, that's how they try to get you to think in the echo chambers. We're just domesticated sheep on somebody's land. They want you to join them in that. And if you don't join in on that, then in some kind of way, they look at you as some sort of despicable person because you refuse to engage. Like, look, man, I'm not, no, I don't want to be, walking around talking about how I'm a sheep living on somebody else's land. I'm not going to program myself with that internal dialogue. I'm not going to do that. Why would I want to do that? I have to disassociate myself from it because that is a frequency, okay? And he's going to pollute you with that frequency. This is why you have to, they say bad association spoils useful habits, or, who you associate with is, birds of a feather flock together, because they're sharing the same frequency. And if you don't want to be, present in it, don't subject yourself to it. Remove it from your space. This is what they're talking about, pruning the garden of your mind. Pruning the garden of your mind, of your heart, however you want to say it. Just thinking this may be a deeper calling for some souls like you outside of us. Elites rule the world. Now, elites just hope you never wake up. That's all they hope. They just hope you never wake up, In your poem Mirrors, you break that down very well to conquer the inner devil. Yeah, that was a nice poem. I might say it again one day. I might say it again. Hey, look, y'all, what time is it? I got to get off. I got to get off of here. I got to get off of here. Okay, it's 9 on time, yeah. All right, well, look, that was a good talk. You know, I like having discussions like that, you know, just talking about, you know, spiritual principles and kicking the bobo. You know, I was just doing it today like we were sitting on the porch talking. Don't you like to have those type of conversations, you know, like you're just sitting on the porch, just chopping it up, you know, about a particular subject? He said you have to be a cause of your life and not an effect. That is absolutely correct. You're the ultimate cause. And you can do that by an exercise of free will. That's why you have free will. Free will allows you to change the course of your life. My avocado tree stopped producing. Okay, look, y'all, I got to go. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and I will see you tomorrow. All right, peace.